Guys, welcome back to Iris After Hours. We are in the Bolz Ministry studio.
Yes.
Look who I'm sitting next to.
I'm so excited.
Mr. Episode 3 of Iris After Hours himself.
When we're sharing an office.
Yes.
We're sharing an office.
I know, you could just walk across the hallway back in the Hollywood Production Center.
Yeah, it was like right down the hall. That's right.
It was
That's
crazy.
So funny. Yep.
And now here we are, almost 3 years later.
Yeah.
It's episode 100 and something. I mean, you can look down and see on the YouTube page where we are at. But Shawn, so good to have you back, mate.
I'm glad to be back.
And 3 more books, or is it 4?
I don't know.
Gosh, it was
so many.
because it was Translating God last time we did the podcast. You just brought that out, but now God's Secret was next.
Yes.
No,
actually, the children's curriculum.
Oh,
the children's book.
This one,
next.
and this is so good. My
Growing
boy's
Up with
been
God.
there.
This is like one of the best testimony books we get from people where they say their kids are getting awakened, which is really cool. It's in a lot of conservative churches. It's in a lot of mega churches that don't use charismatic stuff.
Come on.
So this is a lot of fun. We have a whole curriculum.
And then this one next.
Yeah, we call it God Secrets. It's really practical. It's about a life filled with words of knowledge. And I talk about the part that's not practical is like the neurology of God. Like we share
the way God thinks.
Yeah, the way that God's process, his inner process. And so that part's really exciting for everybody. It goes into like, how do we let the Holy Spirit relate the deep parts of God to us right now? And so that's what that's about. It's really good. And then it goes into words of knowledge because that's what people love, like our celebratory ministry for, as far as like they come from all over the world to see like, how do I activate in the word of knowledge gifting like you have? So I go into a process behind it. Then this, we just keep going.
Hang on. This guy's, he runs fast, Shawn Bolz.
I do.
Shawn, has God ever told you anything that you've had to keep a secret?
Many, many things.
Really?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I can't wait. It's never
things.
happened to me. I want that to happen one day.
I'm the worst secret keeper if it's good news too.
Well,
if God tells me anything that's good at all, like I told him, don't ever give me lottery numbers because I will use them because I'll be so excited. Like, don't tell me anything good because on the level of, and then say, don't tell anybody about this because my friends know, like Hona, who's a mutual friend of ours.
Yeah.
He's my best friend. And Hona has always told me, I don't tell you any good news that I don't want told to like 3 people unless I tell you. Like, you cannot on our friendship tell anybody. And I'm like, okay, I won't.
Wow. He's going to put the little disclaimer in.
Which is so sad. I mean, I'm not self-aware at all that I do it.
Oh, that is so cool though. But Shawn, so tell us, so the things that God has told you that you can't tell, are they like revelatory things, or is it just things just for you, or is it things about others, or is it
there's things for me,
sins about other people? Or?
No, it's not sins as much. I think most of the time when people hear sins, it's most of the time it would be people discerning. It wouldn't be God speaking. It'd be more people you discern something wrong, and then then you have to have a conversation with God. Why am I discerning this?
Yeah.
You know, but I feel like most of the time, I have had times where God showed me someone's sin and I've actually had to confront it, but it's very rare.
Yeah.
But most of the time, his secrets and
but
why
that's,
it's called
but
God's
that's
secrets
love.
is really...
But that's love too, isn't it? I mean, really. I mean,
it's like your kids. You catch your kid in something, they don't confess, so you tell them, okay, I know you did this.
Yeah.
Let's figure this out. This isn't okay.
Yeah.
You know, and well, hello, it's
Grace
moving.
Grace and truth. These are remote control.
That's amazing.
We're at the Bolz studio. Exactly. Only the best. Come on.
Yeah. So no, the God secrets is just the fact that when we hear words of knowledge are so different because they're a before and after moment. All of a sudden, somebody speaks you something from God that only you know or only you and your family know.
Yes.
And so it doesn't have to be like a lot of things I get is like birthdays, anniversaries, those kinds of things.
Or
well, let's get on Facebook. Like that could be all on like searched on Google. What happens when it's, hey, you put the last letter of your dad, and I've done this before. You put the last letter from your dad underneath in a box underneath your bed, and you need to pull it out, and this is what God's saying about it right now. And I've done that kind of thing where it's like no one knows. And when someone feels that known by God, especially when they don't know God well, or they don't feel known by God well, and they hear that and they go, the God of the whole universe has stopped in this moment to care about me. And it just changes everything for them. That's why I love words of knowledge, because words of knowledge for healing are phenomenal. All of a sudden, someone has a back injury, and right here, I feel it right here, and someone raised their hand. But when you say, hey, the last conversation you had with your dad, that kind of thing, it's like, it changes the atmosphere of the person's life forever. And that's what I love about God's secrets. And he wants to give all of us his secrets,
Whoa. Because often we're not in that place where we're aware that God's thinking about us, seeing what we're doing. Like everything in our lives is laid bare before God. God sees all.
Yeah. And we think of it in a negative context or a shame context. Yeah. So we think of it like God's looking at us and like,
oh my gosh, it's so
true. I wish
true.
you would stop doing that, even if we're in a good moment.
Yeah.
And I just think of my daughters, like we went to Disneyland over New Year's with them. It was so much fun.
I know, I saw the pictures on Facebook.
It was just someone gifted us the trip. And so we had like 3 days with them. And they had their toddlers, or like little kids. So they had their moments of like, they probably had like, you know, 6 or 7 bad moments a day where they're like, no, give it to me. Ah! You know, that kind of thing. But it wasn't like.
They pass quickly.
But yeah, they pass quickly. And at one point.
Don't you love that about kids? Oh. How they can be life and death. And then you just got to change the thinking about something. And it's like.
And they're instantly better.
They're smiling even though there's tears running down and it's changing.
Totally.
I love that. Isn't that so good?
Hartley at the end of the day goes, are you mad at me? And I said, why would I be mad at you? And she said, well, because I was naughty today. And I said, you were so good today. You had a few moments,
so
but
sweet.
Like the full day, I'm so proud of you. You were so good. She's 4, you know. You were like, why are you thinking about the naughty moments? Like you already said sorry. Like I've never thought of them again. I don't care. She's like, oh, okay. And I said, do you look in my eyes? Do you see the goodness? Like I feel goodness from you, not naughtiness. And she's like, okay, Daddy. And it changed her. And I feel like that's what the prophetic does.
Whoa.
So that's the books has a lot of that kind of stuff in it.
Oh my gosh, I'm tearing up here. Hartley is so beautiful. That's so sweet.
We have those moments a lot with both of them because they're very like they're going through those like quick inner processes of changes, and I feel like I'm being mentored through the process of parenting them. You know, it's like I'm changing.
Yeah, because it's true, isn't it? I mean, we don't know exactly how to parent fully, do we? So it's like we're learning.
That's when you know you're a Christian. You're like, please God.
I know, because it's like, oh my gosh. Yeah. And I just remember back in our last podcast, which you've probably listened to, guys, is just the influence your parents had on you was so incredible with how they were intentional with you and helped bring your identity out and who you are and what who you were wanting to be, even though it was lots of different things, and they were trying to help you to hone it down.
Yeah.
So
what's funny because like I had one of the best compliments I've ever had this year, and it's from Pastor Bill Johnson, and who I love. And,
Bill's so amazing.
And I'm not name dropping. I'm just saying in the context of the story, it'll make sense. Is that he said, Shawn, you're one of my favorite people because I've never seen modeled what I've seen you, which is childlikeness. And the moment he said that, I was through a text message. The moment he said that, this is where it's not really about me. I all of a sudden realized like I was modeled that from my parents, and I took it on into an extreme form from my parents because they were so childlike. Anytime they heard God might be moving, they'd drop everything and say, let's go to that meeting. Let's just go. Hey, we can go to the movies tonight, or we can go see what God's doing in that revival meeting. But they would include us in it. It wasn't like, oh, we'd rather go to the movies. They're like, what if some people are getting healed? Like, let's go see. And so we had like this hunger for like seeing God move my whole life. Like my mom and dad were like, hey, we heard that there's a nursing home that no Christians have visited, and most of the people don't have family. Let's go see what will happen if God shows up. And so like when you have parents like that model that, it's like when Bill gave me the compliment, who's actually complimenting my parents. Yeah. And it was one of those kind of pay it forward moments where I was thinking, wow, this is your compliment to my parents. I told them, this is your compliment, not mine. Like you built us in me. And I feel like it's such a beautiful picture of how, you know, passing the legacy. It's like when your kids get complimented in the future, a lot of those compliments will be the environment and atmosphere you put them in, which is beautiful. Whoa. So I'm trying to be a good steward.
Yeah, I know. I mean, just the weight of this, what we're talking about, is pretty crazy. Yeah. I mean, if you really think about the weight, and that's the one thing that I suppose does freak you out a bit as a parent, is that what am I doing with my kids? You know, and what I give them and how I steward my life before them and help them steward their lives. I mean, both are probably equal weighted to influencing them, isn't it? Yeah, the example, but also the teaching. Absolutely. Both are like super weighty, and gosh. So I hope you're encouraged by this, guys. Convicted.
That's not convicted. In the book. That's just a conversation.
Yeah, that's a bonus. Convicted and encouraged.
Maybe we should write a book on that.
Come on. Parenting. Shawn, so amazing. And now what is this one? This is Exploring the Prophetic.
It's just a devotional. And so we took a bunch of different materials that we have from other stuff, and I wanted to do a challenge.
From a lot of your other books?
Yeah, from all of our other books, other materials we have. And all of our books have a workbook that's completely different than the book, meaning it has how to flesh it out and be practical in it. So the God Secrets has it, Transcend God has it. Awesome. So there's actually like, here's some assignments, here's some lessons, here's some things you can do. But what was missing is a way to challenge people to practice it every day.
Yeah, right.
Because people get excited when they see me or someone else prophesy if they're not if they're not as familiar, or if they're getting renewed in their desire to prophesy, they might read a book and be like, that's great. I like that for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
But then when you commit, this is 90 days.
Ah, it's a 90-day devotional.
So when you commit to 90 days, you're like, and you just skip over the ones you don't want to do if you do this. Just skip over the ones you're like, that's not making sense to me today, and go back to it later. But we've had so many people complete this. So we released this at the beginning of last year. And it's been one of our best sellers. Like, it's in all Barnes and Nobles. It's like all over the place.
Oh
like
my
it's
gosh.
one of the best selling things we've ever done, and people love it because it's bite-sized pieces of every day I can focus on. It's 10 minutes a day. You know, I can focus on like challenging myself to go deeper in my connection with God, and also to prophesy to other people. So my whole thing is always about yourself.
Yep.
And then other people. It's like you're loving God, but you're loving yourself. You're ministering to yourself, but you're also ministering to other people. So I'm my own best personal prophet. So if I don't hear from God for myself, I'm gonna have a hard time being motivated to hear from God for other people unless it's out of performance.
And that's
so this
such
is
an
about
important
self
lesson
and other
for
people.
for people who are maybe out there who are running to get words, or that desire to get words, which can become a bit unhealthy. But you need to get the word for you first from God.
Totally. And I've run into those people all the time, and it doesn't discourage me. I just help redirect it, because I love the passion.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I just help redirect it. I mean, there's people who come to me and they're like, I came here because God told me you're going to have a word for me. And I'm like, I don't have a word for you, but I do have a direction for you.
Whoa.
And I'll talk to them about, like, you are actually supposed to hear from God on the way that you think I hear from God or could hear from God for you. You're going to hear from God in more awesome ways for yourself. Whoa. And that maybe is your word. And they're like, whoa, that's not that great, until it means something.
Exactly. Until they discover.
Thank God he said that and didn't try and meet my need, you know?
Oh, yeah. Because there's a level of, I mean, wherever we're on our journey with God, there's a level where you and God have to become the most important thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of resources, a lot of teaching. There's a lot of, we're surrounded on YouTube now. We can get on and get the most amazing Shawn Bolz teaching, or Heidi Baker, or Bill, or Dan Moeller, or Graham Cook. We can get, but when it comes, but our connection to God and what we know and our time in the Word of God is super important, because that's what connects us. Here's a question. This is just come off the top of my head. At the moment, are you sensing this, or is this could it be just me? The Word of God seems to be, for me at the moment, jumping off the page at me. I don't know whether this is a season. It seems to be so alive, so full of the Spirit. I just get into it. If I just have a couple of minutes, I'm going, whoa. It's hitting me in the face harder than it ever has before.
I would say the same thing, but I think it's for me, I blame Brian Simmons, who did the Passion Translation.
Right. Yeah.
Because I've been devouring. It's caused me to go into all kinds of strongs and commentaries and all kinds of things. Like, how did he get to this phrase for this passage of scripture? So and he's been sending me some of them. So I have like Isaiah. It's not, maybe Isaiah's not out, but it wasn't out. I have the book of Genesis now. So I have some of the ones that aren't out yet. He'll send them to me. And I'm like,
nice.
And I'm reading going, this reframes my brain. Because the King James Bible, which everything was kind of hinged off of, was written by people who really had bad theology and a bad view of the judgment side of God.
Right.
And so when you read a lot of this stuff, it's in context to punishment and chastisement for Israel versus the kindness of God leading them to repentance and giving them all kinds of chances and giving them all kinds of love. And even when he rejected them, it was out of a place of love, because it wasn't safe
because
for them
it was a boundary.
to have blessing. Like even there's 2 trees in the garden, and he had to have them leave the garden, because if they didn't leave the garden, they might eat from the tree of life, being separated from God for eternity. They'd basically be demons, And so like that kind of stuff, where you don't have those understandings from King James, because you don't see the kindness of God. Wow. And even it wasn't a judgment that God sent Adam and Eve out. And that's one of the reasons why he says to Eve, out of your own womb, there's going to be a Messiah. Like he gives them prophetic promise from the moment they have to leave. So he's not punishing them. He's actually giving them a plan of full redemption. Wow. And disciplining them, because he disciplines those he loves, was very different. So the King James Version has always been hard for me, because it's always been like a punishing version. And I've even studying it theologically for decades. And when I start reading the Passion Translation, I'm like going, oh my gosh, this is the first time I can feel true grace. Not the kind of grace that people run to because they're frustrated with religion, but true grace where you see the love side of God. Yeah. Where there's still no in God's heart sometimes for us, because there has to be as a loving parent. But there's also yes.
Exactly. Wow, wow.
So yes, in that context of what you're saying, the Bible is so alive to me. I've been loving it. I don't have enough time. I just wish I had more time for it.
I know. And that leads me to my next question is, what does it look like for Shawn Bolz to have quiet time? Are you intentionally cutting time out of your day? Like, I would like to know if it's okay.
Yeah. I'm thinking as you're saying
the nuts and bolts of how do you carve this time? Do you wake up early? Do you?
No,
What does
I wish
it look
I could.
like?
I already wake up early for my kids, so I have to get up at like 6 for them, which is I'm not a morning person at all. 0. And so 6 o'clock is like waking up for some people like at 3 in the morning. It's just so stupid. But no, I have my rhythm of life is different every week because we're project based, so we go places.
So your schedule is it constantly changing?
It's constantly changing.
So it's not like you've got a routine and I can stick to it.
And we're filming like this year 4 or 5 different times for 4 or 5 different projects, plus doing 7 other people's events, which is the lowest we've ever done because we're doing 3 2-week tours of our own all over the United States. We did 19 trips there, 17 trips last year. We're doing another 20 this year. So everything's so sporadic. And the only routine I have is like waking up with my daughters. I drive them to school personally. My wife picks them up, and I'm home with them from like 3 to 6. If I have to work again, it's usually after that. So family time is consistent.
So you've got that scheduled in.
As date night, unless I'm out on the road. Saturday day is, or family date night, and then Saturday day is family day. Thursday night is date night. So we have those. Those are routines. My rhythm with God, and different people need routine. I've never been a routine person. So my rhythm with God is I just, at some point during the day, find a place with him. And if I stop, if I have like 3 or 4 days that are cold times where it's like, oh, I didn't find you, then I have to be intentional and set up the time. And I have to be disciplined about it. But I like the rhythm of like, oh, I feel a pull away right now. This is where I feel inspired, almost like artistically or creatively.
Yeah.
Like I feel creatively inspired to pursue you right now. Whoa, and some days, usually crazy. 1 day a week, I have to, because I'm on the board of ministries and I'm also a prophet of different movements, so I have to actually set aside time to really pray for those things.
Yep.
And which is such a gift, but it's a discipline. It's like homework.
So that's you don't put that with your quiet time usually. That's
completely
a different time.
Separate.
So you schedule it in on the calendar.
I won't do that.
I'm stopping and praying for this now. Yeah,
I won't do that if I don't schedule it. Spending time with God, I always do.
It's interesting that you divide those things up.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
Because I can't. Can you imagine you're going to go, you're like, let's go have a date night, Sarah, but we're going to go bring all the kids and try to have individual time with them as well. And you'd never look at your wife or feel anything for your wife at that moment. You'd be so in the story of like, and we have to get to dinner. What do you want for dinner? What is it? Oh, they stop knocking that over. You would not be present with your wife.
Oh my God.
So I feel
Did you have a good date night, darling? No.
I didn't 0. And I feel like we do that to God. It's like, here's my second commandment prayer list, God. Here it is. Oh, and you're like, he's like, I just wanted to be with you. That's a lot of, it's like if you went out on a date night with your wife also and you said, let's do our family calendar for the next 3 months. And I feel like that's what we do with God. So I learned years ago, decades ago, I learned, come with me and just clear yourself, do a lot of listening. Just, I ponder things in my heart. I feel like Mary treasured things in her heart. She treasured what God had spoken to her. So I'll spend time like worshiping, soaking, like spending time, like treasuring certain things. I'm very analytical. I'm very cerebral. So sometimes I'm just.
But do you find you connect to God in the analytical cerebral side as well?
And that's what the God Secrets book's about. Because I think I gave
you don't have to get down on yourself about that.
No.
That's just like how part of how Shawn Bolz is made by God.
Yeah.
And that's how I connect with God. Is
being
not
a
the only way, but
creative person was my curse when I was growing up.
Right.
And it's my blessing now.
Right.
Because all my revelation doesn't come through the seer ways that Bob Jones did or other people who are more the prophetic people or parabolic did. And most of my thing, I feel like I have thoughts that are illuminated or enlightened in my spirit, my mind, impressions, and then I get to go on the journey of seeking out what those mean with God. Wow. And I'm not. There's other people who that would drive them crazy. They would be like, "That's way too much thinking. That's way too." For me, it's like I love the journey of. Almost like meditation on the good news of the kingdom, who Jesus is.
Would
I love
you
it.
call that contemplation as well?
It's contemplation as well. That's I used to do a lot of contemplative type prayer, and I probably still do. I just don't have a model for it anymore.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
And so, gosh, this is amazing, Shawn. It's just inspiring me so much. Just the separation thing's big revelation for me. It's so good. So, what I wanted to ask you was. That side of your nature, I mean, is this probably the reason, because you seem so down to earth, and how you talk about God, and a lot of times it's practical, even though you're talking about these crazy things, and you've had crazy encounters and experiences. I think, have you been to heaven? I'm not going to go there, but you've been to heaven, haven't you?
Yeah.
How many times?
I've been to heaven twice and seen heaven about 7 times.
So, I mean, that's crazy, but you seem so down to earth. Now, do you think that's because of that side of your nature?
That's thanks to Mama Heidi, just so you know. I'll tell this story. I'll go into the mystical for a second, so it'll be real practical. In 2002, I had my what I call my heavenly encounter.
Is this the one where your car went to heaven
I was
with you?
off the earth, like no one could find me type thing for what was only like 7 minutes, but I appeared in another part of the earth. So I teleported or transported. And so I was 5 hours distance. I had people on both sides verify. I left a group in Kansas City and ended up with a group in Branson in 2.5 minutes, basically.
Where's Branson?
Branson is Missouri, so it's about a 5-hour drive.
Oh my gosh.
So in 2.5 minutes, it was crazy. But in that time, I saw some things. Those are some of those secrets I can't talk about. But I did meet Bob Jones.
Oh, I'm glad you can't talk about them. That makes me so excited.
So I can't wait to go to heaven because it's
God's secrets. It's not the meaning, but we're gonna use the double.
Totally.
It's good drama.
So I met Bob Jones in heaven. That's how we met first. And that's how we got connected. Is that we didn't really talk, but that's how he knew I was part of his tribe of peoples because we saw each other there. And a month later we met officially, and from that point on we were just fast friends. And he was like a grandpa to me.
It's okay, guys. Jesus was transfigured on the mountain.
He was.
Yeah,
Philip was
the gospel
transported.
This is part of the gospel, guys.
Yeah, it's like it's been 7 times in the scripture people had appeared different places than they were. So after about a year after this, it was such a beautiful encounter of seeing Jesus. And I grew up a Christian kid. So, I mean, I grew up like around everything, felt like I knew a little bit about everything in the church because I was exposed to it, but it didn't mean I owned it in my soul or my identity. But
of course,
just
this is what I want to get on the next, about how your theology was formed. I just want to bring this later, but keep going on this.
And so I, in that time, and I'd been studying for about 2 years before. I studied the life of about maybe 700 saints and mystics, and just about the connection to God. Because before that, I had studied, maybe it's 27, 28, 29. Before that, I studied the revivalists extensively in my young 20s.
Oh, you did.
And what happened in my spirit, in my heart, is I went, okay, I love these people so much. I treasure them. But every story you read, even including Roland's dad, right, or grandpa.
Yeah, H.A.
You read the context of the story, and it had to equal a certain fruit that we had to see. So like if you read about this person having an encounter, it had to equal this many souls saved. So all the stories were written where people encountered Jesus and then they had this incredible life, but it felt performance to me. And I was like, did anybody just know Jesus for Jesus' sake? Like, and I love the stories. Like I love those stories too. They're so powerful. But I remember Roland even telling me like that he had to write it that way because the church wouldn't have received it if it wasn't connected to evangelism, because it was so out there. These kids are having these visions beyond the veil. They're having these incredible encounters. And I remember when I started studying the lives of different saints and mystics in the Catholic Church, which would be our early church. So like when you hear that, it shouldn't feel like a separation, because that was the church. You know, there was no Protestantism at the time. This is what God was using as the primary vehicle of how he moved. Yeah. And there's these people in the church like Teresa of Avila and Francis of Assisi and John of the Cross, and they were all over the world, mostly in Europe, but all over the world. And you would read their stories of they'd have these deep, what they would call like the abiding presence of God, or most of their life scriptures were John 17, that I'd be one with him as he's one with the Father. Whoa. There's this oneness that they were talking about, these experiences that they were having that did drive them to do great things. That's why they became saints and mystics. But they didn't always, other people told those stories. What they told was, Jesus is so real. He's such a real person. He's so beautiful. I've seen him and this is what I've seen. And it was always this beautiful imagery. It wasn't like, you have to get saved because I see the fire of hell. It was heaven is such a real place. It's our divine motivator. Like eschatology is not a divine motivator. It's a divine motivator, but heaven is the divine motivator, being with Jesus where he is. Even if it's recreated here, it's like being with him where he is. So I went through this period of like really studying that out. So when I had this heavenly encounter, I was really desperate, like really, really desperate. And so a year later, I was probably unhealthy desperate in a way for Jesus, but a year later, almost not a whole year, but like, I don't know if it was 9 or 10 months later, I had planned my suicide. Now when I say that, it was Christian version of suicide, because I was actually happy in life. I was weird happy though. I was like, I don't want to be here anymore. I didn't have a family yet. I wasn't married yet. And I had a friend who goes, I've been to war zones my whole life, gone to red light districts, those kinds of things. And I had a friend from Bolivia, who was traveling to Middle Eastern countries, and everywhere he'd go and get people saved, he had a price on his head everywhere. People were getting killed. All the Christians who he ministered to were getting killed, and he couldn't stay there because he'd have to escape. So my plan was I had a 3-month tour set up with him, and I was going to go with him for 3 months, but stay in one of the places that I knew was the most persecuted and just love the people until we were all killed. So it wasn't like I wanted to die.
No, but it was.
I was like, if I die,
you were going to be
I'll
martyred.
be a martyr. And
Yeah.
it's not a big deal. Like, so I set up my will and set up, because I hadn't done that yet. You know, I was like
Oh
in
my
my
gosh,
late 20s.
Shawn, this is nuts.
And I set up special time with each one of my friends and connected. They had no idea. And so I'm up on the last trip before I go.
Shawn secrets.
Totally. The last trip before I go on this murder trip, martyrdom trip, I'm with Honatan and with a couple of our other friends. And we're up at and it's the first time we meet Heidi.
Oh, no way. Your first time you meet Heidi. Where? In Canada?
It was in 2003 in Canada.
Is it Wesley and Stacey's church?
No, it was like this little place in Sylvan Lake, Alberta. It's a couple named Johnny and Johnny lead it. And their parents led it at the time. And Peter and Catherine, I can't remember their last name right now. My brain is gone. Sorry, Peter and Catherine. Nash. Sorry, Johnny and Johnny.
Come
Nash.
on.
And so it was like Bobby Connor and Bob Jones and all these people. And Claudio Friesen and his wife, and then Heidi. And I'd waited to meet Heidi. I didn't know what she looked like. I'd never seen her. I just heard her on like audio type stuff. So I'm walking down the hallway in the hotel, this big hotel, and Bobby Connor walks by me, and I'm with my 3 friends who came with me. We're all in ministry. And he walks by me and says, hey, if you go off somewhere and get killed, it's not martyrdom. If it's not your time, it's stupidity, and keeps walking. I hadn't talked to him in months, you know. And I hit the ground and I start weeping. I'm just in a hallway and there's hotel rooms. And I'm not a weeper, I'm not a crier. So Hona got so mad. He was so mad at me. He was like, how could you do this to us? You were going to get killed. You were going with Marcelo. How could you do this? And he was so mad at me. And the other guys were like, what's going on? And then Heidi walks by at that point. I'd already met her one time. No. But she walks by at that point and she jumps on me and starts crying and goes, I've seen Jesus too and I want it to die too. You've lost your will to live on earth because you have a will to live with him in heaven. But I'm going to pray for you. And she doesn't know anything. I've never told her story. She goes, I'm going to pray for you. When I pray for you, you're going to have your will to live on earth again because I saw heaven too. I saw Jesus too. And she goes, and not only will you have a will to live on earth again, but you'll love in an unusual way because you'll have nothing to gain here.
Exactly.
And so she prayed for me for, I don't know how long. I mean, no, Heidi, it could be 2 hours. I don't know. It was a long time. Maybe it was an hour. It was 3 hours. Who knows? It was just a long time.
She just loves like that.
That's how we connected. That's how we became friends. She imparted the will to live back after seeing Jesus.
Oh, that is incredible.
That's fine. We were friends ever since, you know.
These are deep things. Oh my gosh. Yeah. These are deep things. But it's, I mean, but what a blessing to get to that point where you love not your own life.
Yeah, I thought I was doing a good job. Scriptural. Like, I'm going to go to a country where I'll probably die for these people who are new Christians, and I'm going to help them. I thought that was great, you know. I was like, at least I'll do something with my life before I die. And I got rebuked from Jesus, and he's like, no, you have a lot more to do.
It's not your time. Wow. And that's the thing. Like I've heard you say before, if someone sees Jesus, there's not much chance of him coming back if you're trying to raise him from the dead.
I'm telling you, we've done a lot of those times.
Because you pray sometimes if people are on the edge of death that they don't see Jesus, if people want him back. Because once you see Jesus, it's like, I'm going.
If you're a Christian and you see Jesus, if you're not a Christian and you see Jesus, you probably want to come back because you want to like know him.
Yeah.
But I've never met a Christian who saw Jesus and came back on the verge of death.
Yeah.
So no.
So crazy. Oh my gosh, that's a great story.
Yeah,
You met Heidi, Mama Heidi, being a mama. Oh my gosh.
Totally.
So Shawn, gosh, where do we go from here? This is so deep.
I have another. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, and we're going to get to that one.
No, we don't have to. I'm just like, I don't know. And I didn't write this, but it's the Bible.
Yes, come on. Your theology. So now, I don't know if you've ever thought about this before, but how was your theology formed? Because obviously, if you listen to the first podcast we were with Shawn, and you know a lot of Shawn's background, your encounters with God, but your parents and ministering to people from a young age, and then breakouts at a 17-year-old, you just seeing at the concerts you were running, people, hundreds coming to the Lord, you know. Was it through the Word of God? Was it through your experience? Was it your parents' theology? Did you have your parents' theology?
I need to know basis. No, I didn't have my parents' theology at all, because my parents were like, at the time, they aren't anymore. Now we have the same theology pretty much, but at the time they were like still really into the rapture, and they were getting people saved based on the fact that they might go to hell.
Right.
And I was getting people saved based on the fact that God loved them, and we wanted to populate heaven because I was homesick for my family that was dying.
Yes.
You know, and so it was and they would fundamentally agree with that, but our methods were completely different.
Yeah.
Our motivations were different because we had a different theology. I was on a need to know basis with theology. I think when I went to Kansas State, I was released in just kind of a weird ministry, meaning like there wasn't like an official staff position for people like me.
Yeah, because it wasn't as amazing that your whole time there that it was about, like you said, it was about you learning obedience.
Totally.
And being fathered by Mike Bickle in a way that wasn't actually
very unique.
Yeah.
And I love Kansas State. They just did such a good job in my life in so many ways, and we all experience hardship, wherever we go. It's just, so there were some hard things, but I mean, like, it was beautiful what I experienced there. I mean, just Mike has in him, especially his excellencies of Christ stuff, his theology on the bride of Christ, those kinds of things. I cut my teeth on that stuff. Just knowing I was loved by God and then giving out that place of love. Yeah. It was just a beautiful. But when I was there, I was teaching at the Bible school. I was teaching at Bible schools around the world, and I was like 19 and 20. So I didn't have good theology, obviously. So they put me on a program because I didn't have time to go to Bible school because I was teaching at them. They put me on a program where they said, let's do like a homeschool theology course for system. One of the major theologians in the charismatic movement said, I'm adopting you for this. And
oh, how
you're going to do this. No, it was terrible because he put me on systematic theology. Now, that's what Heidi always jokes around and says. I have a master's degree in systematic theology and I've been delivered from it. My first time I took systematic theology, I was like, this is bull crap. Like, I don't agree with like 90% of this. And I threw it out. I was just like, no. So they failed me. And they said, you can't minister again until you agree to go through this again, because they were worried about my theology. And I was like, oh, dang it. So I went through it, and I actually used it as a time to go, okay, I'm going to respect and honor these fathers. So I want to learn from it both what I need to learn because I'm not agreeing. I need to find out, I need to press into those points I don't agree with and find out why in my heart or my spirit I'm not agreeing. Either I'm stubborn and I need to learn, or this is wrong and I need to find the right.
Guys, so this is a spirit of wisdom right now. That's the spirit of
I don't
wisdom.
Know. I don't know.
Obviously, of course, yeah, but you decide I have to do it, so I'm going to do this.
Oh, it's the worst too. It's like if you've ever had a class you hated homework in, I hated reading this stuff. I'd read it and just be like, I want to pull my hair out, and I love studying. So it was really hard.
Oh my gosh, Shawn, this is so I got through that. This is so interesting. So what was the fruit from it then?
I learned all the stuff I wanted to learn. I learned to look for what was pressing my buttons so I can go after it and find the knowledge I needed to feel secure. Because I mean, it's true. If you prophesy out of your theology, you minister out of your theology
can really challenge you and shake your foundations a little bit. Because that's the scary thing when someone comes with a whole new idea about God. You go, hang on, that's not what I know about God.
And I was in a movement where it's like everybody felt like they had kind of their checklist, and then they'd look at everything that on TV or anywhere else with their checklist. Oh, it doesn't check off. I don't like that anymore. And they would discard whole people and groups and other ministries and other churches because of that. So I was trying to be inclusive, but not in the Lucy Grace way, but inclusive in the sense of like love accepts all things but doesn't approve of bad behavior. So I need to go into the Bible and really figure out like if I'm going to reform at all, because I'm such a reformer. I'm like, I constantly buck systems. Like, systems are hard for me. At the same time, I'm a team player, and I've been successfully involved with churches my whole life. So I don't have a church you can go to and say, did you have a fallout with Shawn Bolz? And, oh, wait, there's not like a history of bad experiences, but I was a challenger. So like people, if you want someone on your team who's never going to challenge status quo or is never, if you bring up a new idea, or if you bring up, like when Mike Bickle was bringing up, we're only going to teach my eschatology here. I was the first one to go, I don't agree with your eschatology. Can we talk about that?
Yeah.
And he was okay.
He was okay. That was amazing that you said that in the first podcast. That you said, I'm never going to preach your eschatology, and you both laughed.
But I'll honor you.
Cool. Yeah.
I'll honor my time here, and I'll honor you. And I just won't teach you the eschatology when I'm here because you don't want me to. But I had to learn, like, because I was around people like almost all the prophets that I was around had really different eschatology and different thoughts about that. Almost everybody I was around had a different understanding of faith or grace or even the prophetic itself. And a lot of really well-known charismatic and Pentecostal ministers, what they do is they become the expert of most subjects in their own life, and then they become pretty unmoved from that point on. And so I was like, I don't want to become that. So how do I become an evolving, adaptable person? And actually learn a lot.
Shawn.
So I just start going after other stuff.
Sometimes you can get your revelation and you stick to it, and that's the monument in your life, and you miss
and you weigh everything against it. You don't ever enter into exciting things that look. I remember when I first started going to Bethel, one of my friends,
and that could be true what they believe, but excluding a lot of other stuff as well.
Yeah, and there's beauty in a lot of streams. Many streams make glad the rivers of God.
Yeah.
And I went to Bethel in 2000.
And we're not talking about heresy here.
No.
We're just talking about differences
Different ways of viewing
of the truth.
Yes.
That's in the scriptures. Yeah. So we're
And
not talking about.
I just told you guys I was teleported. You might not believe that. Doesn't mean you have to reject me, but in some movements you would have to.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Just based on me believing that. Like we should be able to agree on the foundational points of the gospel and the cross and the resurrection, and not exclude each other just because of some of the other things that are, unless I'm majoring on that. If I'm like, that's part of my main testimony. If you don't believe that, you're rejecting me. I don't do that to anybody.
Yeah.
You know, but I went to Bethel, and a friend of mine who's a theologian was like, Bethel is really off. They're really off on their theology. I'm like, can you tell me what? They gave me like 20 points. And it was really cool because I actually went in and studied what they believed about those things, and I actually even changed even more theologically because my experience with Bethel helped me so much that him telling me that they weren't okay in these areas actually was the catalyst for me to get better theology.
Wow.
And I actually ended up aligning myself fully with Bethel and their theology. For the most part, I would say we're 90, if not 99% the same as far as my relationship to Bethel's theology. And it was really, he was so upset. He's like, I can't believe you're doing this. I said, well, I explored. You asked me to explore. I explored, and I actually got enlightened. I learned a lot. I was awakened to a lot of things that I've only thought this way my whole life. And then people like you and me, we usually just use each other's opinions to justify and stay there. And I actually wanted to go outside of that. I didn't go into a cult. I went into just a great church, and I actually learned so much that now I'm on a learner's journey that I've never been on before. So I feel like from 2006 on, I've read so many good theology books, and some are, the old Baptist guys, and some are some of the new modern theologians, and some are the emerging guys and whatever. And there's all kinds of excesses you can look at, and you can disqualify a whole person based on that part of their voice.
Yes.
But I mean, there's so many things people can disqualify me for if they don't agree with some of the fundamentals of what I believe. But there's so much good in each other's experience too. So I've been really learning.
That's so interesting, Shawn. That's a really wise point, is that you don't wipe people out just because there's one or two things you don't agree with. Look at the other stuff that's really great and really awesome. So amazing. Now, do you think a big influence on your theology was the relational side of your faith with Jesus? And it's, I don't know, to me it seems like this has been the solid thing that you've almost bounced everything off of, is that it's the relational side of, I'm with God and he loves me. How does this fit in everywhere else with all these other thoughts?
If you read my first book, which isn't one of these ones, is from 2000.
Yeah, which one's that called?
Throne Room Company.
What?
Throne Room Company.
Throne Room Company.
And it's basically my experience with God in heaven. I don't tell much of it. I tell 1.5 page of it. And then I tell what I got detoxified from in my religious spirit, my humanity. And basically go through like,
because that religious spirit comes against all of us, doesn't it?
All of us. And I mean,
none of us are immune from getting it.
No, I was in a movement where it's like we were so not religious that we became religious.
Exactly. That's the subtlety.
So wild.
Isn't that crazy?
So I came out of performance. I came out of workaholism. I came out of significance issues where my significance was tied to my destiny and my identity and stuff.
How were they identified to you? How did you get?
What I'm saying is, when I saw heaven, I saw His love. And I was literally, layers came off me. So then I wanted a journey where I was like, you don't have to go to heaven to have this. But I wanted a journey where I went, well, my identity isn't, what I do is who I am. My identity isn't in I'm enough. That He thought of me for an eternity before He created me. That He has an original plan that He's going to restore me to. That He thinks of me all the time. That I'm part of His thought life, not because of what I can be for Him, but I'm already in His heart. I'm already a part. And because I had such healthy parents, I'm in my parents' heart every day. Like I can feel that, whether I'm good or bad, I'm always good to them. They always love me, And so I changed so much in that moment that I had a construct that was dismantled. So I was looking for theological understanding that would help endorse that love, not intentionally, but that's what happened. Like all of a sudden, my eschatology changed to, I actually believe in a happy ending. I believe in a good scenario, and I start to believe in some level of preterism, but not fully. And I start to believe in some stuff where I'm like, oh my gosh, you are going to come to a beautiful bride, a spotless bride, because I've seen her. I've seen her in the spirit. So you're going to come to someone who knows how to cooperate with you. And that's a scenario where when I've seen, whether it's Daniel or Esther or Joseph or some New Testament example or some after the Bible examples where different people have risen up in society and they've actually had great cultural engagement and great kingdom impact with God's love. Like, we're going to see literally tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people in those positions of showing the goodness of God. So when I look at eschatology, my eschatology has radically changed from doom and gloom to, and we're barely going to make it, to actually the whole world's going to see a really clear picture of God's love because of people like you and me.
Wow.
And we're going to look like a bride who's made herself ready. And I was married later. And so I married Cherie, who has great identity. And I had a problem with different women who I dated before because it felt like they needed a father figure. They needed someone to rescue them. And Cherie didn't need that, nor did she want it, nor did she even know if she wanted to be in ministry with me. She's like, I kind of have this other thing going on, like, your ministry is a liability. So there was no upgrade, like when she married me. And so, like, I realized, like, this bride that Jesus is coming after, she has a fully formed identity, which means God's really forming us. He really wants to form us into being really emotionally intelligent, spiritually intelligent, life intelligent, where we reign in life. Like, the book of Proverbs to me was given to God's people so we can thrive in the most unique way in this world. Wow. And the world's waiting for people like that to emerge. Whoa. So to me, like, even like when I saw him and I saw what would be worthy, I can't picture him with a broken down, boring woman bride who's like, oh God, I hope you help me someday that I could, I don't have many finances now. What, you want to go on a trip? Well, I can't go because I can't afford it, God. I can't picture that being his bride. Yes. And that's what that other eschatology looked like to me. It's like, we're going to hide in caves and we won't have technology, and oh, you can't get dentistry because there's no dentist in the cave, and we're all hiding from the Antichrist. And I was like, what is happening? Like, how did we get there?
Yeah.
When Jesus came to show us.
Because there's got to be a meeting, doesn't there, for a bride and groom? It's not like the groom's like the down there's
and you have like this prostitute
the bride's a nobody.
Yeah.
It's like, no, they wanted, there's a matching, isn't there?
And Cherie to me was a great example of my wife, because she wasn't anybody that the church would take notice of, in the sense of, like, she didn't have an awesome ministry. Her career was a great career, but it's not like a visible career. And there's not anything in the natural that would make, like, she's not famous or an identity person or whatever. And she was perfect, because I was like, wow, you have such solid identity. You know who you are. You have a great friendship circle that we're all still friends with. Like, everything in your life you built for the long term and the long haul and with integrity. And you're an example of the bride. You don't have to be famous, rich, amazing in all these exterior ways to be solid in who you are in God. And she's, she's so worthy. And I just felt like I saw in Jesus's eyes the worthiness towards his bride. Wow. And I love Joseph. I love Daniel, because they were the second in command. They weren't the first in command. What a picture that they were like influencers living, bringing exiles out of Babylon because of their position. It's just crazy to me. Or Egypt or whatever.
So good, Shawn. Gosh, thank you for that. Man, this is amazing. Are you guys like having so much like inspiration at the moment? I am having like crazy. Come on, we've got to cover this last book. The latest?
Modern Prophets, the latest.
Tell us about what's
you
this
guys
one all
might
about?
be on Shawn Bolz fatigue with all his books, This one we wrote as a curriculum. We really wanted to write a curriculum for people, and this is kind of the light version. We're going to come out with the full version in about a year and a half that we'll have. Wow. We wrote it with like 500 more pages or more, and then our publisher was like, it's too much. Bring a bite-sized piece. Basically, it's the theology of prophets. Like the whole Bible is about 1/3 of it's about prophets and prophecy. Yeah, right. So they were the rock stars of their day. They were the people in the Old Testament that everybody wanted to get together with and like process with. I mean, Saul's dad's like, you have to go meet with Samuel, or I might not have a business. Yeah, my donkeys are gone. Like these kinds of things Samuel happen over and over and over. And Samuel raised up the schools of the prophets, which proved, I mean, all the minor prophets came out of Samuel's schools. So Samuel proved, and there was over 2,000 prophets in the Old Testament that weren't named. And you think of what they were doing. Like, we didn't have their stories. We don't know their assignment and how they helped Israel and how they helped the world and how they helped families. And so prophets were a big deal. And in our New Testament mindset, prophets are mostly church-centric and in the way that we view them. And it's normally not practical, and it's normally a little bit scary. And so what we want to do is to provide a book that gives the right theology for both Old and New Testament prophecy and prophets and prophetic ministry. Then it helps people to navigate their own relationship to those gifts and the ministry and the office, or helps people to manage other people or manage that into the world. So like, I had a major apostle come to me and goes, I wish I had a Bob Jones or a Paul Cain. And I looked at him and I go, you have like 25 ordained prophets in your movement. What are their responsibilities? When you ordain them, what do they have to do for you? Yeah. And he goes, oh, I never thought of that. So basically he ordains people and never gave them a responsibility. I said, well, one thing I learned from the movements I've been involved with is they asked us to pray once a month and kind of bring a prophetic report to the table. And then after about 12 months, they have, they might tell us some of the things they want prayer for, or they might not. And after 12 months, if you have 30 people, out of those 30 people, usually 1 or 2 give steering words a month, because you're just asking them to be present with their prophetic gift in your movement. They also help to pray into the people who we're bringing on staff. I've prayed into people in many movements that are like, we're praying for this person. Is not just is it the right person, but is this, tell us about this. Like, give us God's revelation of how this is going to work in our movement. And there's all kinds of stuff. And then they also, prophets process revelation of movements or businesses or whatever with people. So it's time you, like, when you get prophetic words,
process their theology,
revelation that they get from other people. So if you get
process,
you probably had 25 words from people in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
So if you had somebody who's a prophet in your life, typically one of the things that they'll do is you'll be compelled to tell them your God stories, your prophetic stories, and then they'll say back to you things. It's basically the same things you're already hearing. They'll help to identify in your heart how to apply the words or what to do or interpret the words. So, I asked him, do you have any of these functions happening? And he said, none of them. And those are just 3 of like 7 things you could have benefits of prophets, And I said, I feel like as an apostle, you have a responsibility to activate this. And I told him, gave him a plan to do it. And it's like 90 different for them as a movement now. Wow. So then a businessman within a month came to me and said, I wish I could have a prophet walk alongside me, but I know that's wrong. Like, what are you talking about? He goes, well, I'd love to pay somebody to be on contract to just pray for my company, process my revelation with me that I'm getting from both God and other people, and also if they would get anything to share it with me. Not to pay them to prophesy, but to just help process the issue of prophecy and revelation that we're getting. I said, that's totally legal. Why wouldn't you do that? Just it's a paid job that you can do. There's no reason not to do that. He goes, are you serious? I said, yeah, I'll recommend some people to you. So I recommended someone, and it's a woman, and she, for 3 years, was under contract for this company. I think she's still under contract with the company, and she gives a prophetic report every month. And then he has other people who also process all the revelation they're getting for the year. They have.
And this is a business, not a Christian business.
Multinational, 300,000 plus employee company. Wow. Where there's lots of non-Christians working, but he's the chairman. And so he explained to me, like, I remember being in one of the meetings where he said, these are all the people in our executive team that are saved. Can we get some coaching for them? And then can the coach also meet with other people without the Christian language? And I said, sure. So we sent a friend of ours named Stu Chua into it, and he did it, and did an amazing job. And it was like a radical 90-day difference for them, because all of a sudden it was like the prophetic brought a light into their company to see so much more clear. And people just don't have the models and how to do that. Yeah. So we created some starter models. They're not going to work for everybody, but they'll make you think about how to apply the prophetic in your life. Yep. Meaning, like, we did some starter business models, some ways to think about it, some starter local church models for a local church prophetic team or whatever. But not everybody will do that. But it'll give them insight into, there's a lot more available than you think. It's kind of like in the old days, if you said, Dad and Mom, I'm going to be a musician, they'd be like, no, you're going to be a rock star on the radio. No, you can't do it. Yes, yes. No, there's like 3,000 occupations as a musician, but your parents think of the worst one. Well, with churches, you're like, I fucking call the prophetic, and the pastor gets anxiety. Like, oh no, I don't know what to do with that. I don't know how to pastor. I don't know what to do. That's ambition. Versus there's like hundreds of roles that the prophetic can play. Wow. And there's, in the Bible, there's so many different roles for the prophetic. There's so many different types of prophets. I love the next version of the book. Unfortunately, we don't have it right now. As we went through all the different prophets in the Old Testament and what their function was.
The big one. In here, the full one.
Yeah, it's the textbook version. Yeah. We went through all the roles of the prophets, what their function was, if they had a job outside of that as well, which almost all of them, 90% did, if not 99%, had a job outside of their prophetic role, which is amazing.
That's so interesting.
And then how they impacted and why they impacted, like why God raised them up. And it's really, they're so diverse. It's like, it's so beautiful, because then you go, I'm not pigeonholed. Prophet doesn't mean one thing. It doesn't mean the person who stops worship in the middle of worship and prophesies on a platform on a Sunday morning. It could actually be, I'm a prophet in the entertainment industry, and my job is to be like a life coach to celebrities. Yeah. Or it could be that I am a prophetic artist, and my job is to make art that defines moments in history for people to understand and wrap their faith around God. Wow. So there's so many different types of prophets, even in the Bible. It's just beautiful. God. So this is modern prophets. That's why there's a black man, an Asian young boy, a white woman. I don't know what he is. He might be Hispanic. An old woman. It's like, we wanted to show prophets are all types of people, all different age groups.
So good. Cool. I think we're almost out of time. Oh, yes, we are. Shawn, what a far cry are we from Idaho in that church when you were burnt out and you went, God, I can't do this. I don't want to give up the prophetic. I'll keep it for myself. And look what God encountered you, gave you those 12 things. And look what's happening now. This is like, look at the fruit of the, maybe it's 12 books. I don't know what he told you, but I don't know if you can share them, whether they're God's secrets. But we're well on the way. Yeah. Shawn, I feel very encouraged, very inspired by what God is doing and how you're stewarding. You know, you're a great example for all of us of how to steward the stuff that God's giving us and how we walk it out and thinking about things. And
I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, we really appreciate you, Shawn. And you're going to be with Heidi in a couple of weeks up in Toronto. It's going to be fun.
I'm so excited. I wish you guys would come in.
And it's just amazing how. I just thank you for your fight for freedom, the freedom to let the love of Jesus be the main thing, and your closeness and your relationship with Jesus to be the main thing that buffets against everything else, to let it come into alignment with I'm my beloved and he is mine. That's what it seems like to me.
Yeah. No, I love that. Thank you for that definition.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Just one last question. Has your favorite movie changed? Is it still Gladiator?
I haven't seen Gladiator in so long. You know what?
I'm going to say
a modern
favorite movie
is probably in the Marvel franchise.
Oh, come on.
It'd be a competition between Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2 and Thor Ragnarok. Those are my favorites. I mean, Wakanda Forever as well. But, you know, yes. I would do the whole thing, but I just, you know, be super geek at that point. But yes, it's just,
man.
I wish I had more time. Can you believe that I have visitations, but I also play video games and watch movies like crazy.
I know, and I meant to.
I love that.
I haven't got time now, but next podcast, I wanted to do your whole gaming, starting from the consoles you played and the games right through to modern day.
Just picture everyone. I've played them all. It's
we got to do another podcast, and I want to do the gaming background of Shawn Bolz, because my son will want to hear every one of those things. Because I got that, you know, the old Atari, they re-released it, so he's got the.
That's awesome.
So even Izzy's been back with the old Donkey Kong.
That's amazing. You know, see, retro, we never knew it'd come back.
Frogger and all that. Yeah, I know. Isn't it crazy? But Shawn, we are so blessed. This is so good. Thank you so much. And thanks guys for listening.
Thanks, Iris.
Yeah, I hope you've been blessed by this. Get some of Shawn's books, read it. And we can use our minds. We can think. This is great. We're not cookie cuttered. You can be yourself. Yes. Find your identity in Christ. Your relationship to Jesus is the most important thing. And concentrate on that. Guys, we love you. Leave some comments below. And we will see you next time for the next episode of Iris After Hours. Ciao. This podcast is presented by Iris Global. For more information or to support the work of Iris Global, please visit us online at irisglobal.com.